business entities, tax basics, and insurance. My name is Audrey Guerrera, and I'm part of the financial wellness team here at American Airlines Credit Union. In a moment, I will introduce our presenter, but first, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items to help you make the most of this presentation. First, for any questions you might have throughout the presentation, please use the Slido Q&A feature located in your WebEx menu, and be sure to send your questions to all panelists. Also, keep in mind that your questions are visible to all attendees, so if yours is more personal, we encourage you to reach out to the Financial Wellness Group. We'll provide that contact information toward the end of our webinar. We will also pause to answer a few questions about halfway through the presentation, and we'll save some time at the end to answer a few more. We will also have some polling questions throughout the webinar and would really appreciate your participation. And you can be assured that we do not save your answers and your responses are anonymous. Lastly, lastly, you can expect to receive a survey via email immediately following our webinar. So please take the time to provide us with your feedback so that we can continue to improve our webinars. In the survey, you can also indicate that you would like to be contacted by a credit union representative for any other questions you might have. You can also request a PDF of the presentation. And next slide, please. So a reminder that today's presentation is for educational purposes only. Final rates, products, or services should be confirmed with a credit union representative at the time of service. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our subject matter expert. Today we are joined by Morgan Rogers, our business development professional for business services and mortgages. Morgan has worked in the business services at American Airlines Credit Union for 9 years. She says her favorite part of the job is building meaningful relationships with our members while helping them to achieve their financial and business goals. She is a self-professed Swiftie and knows most of her songs. Lastly, Morgan is a wife and mother to her 2-year-old daughter and a fur baby. All right, Morgan, I'll check back in with you for polls and questions if needed, but for now, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Audrey, for that introduction. And thank you for everyone that's joining us today for the webinar presentation. So this is the agenda. We will be discussing today business entity types, business insurance options, and also discuss some basics on self-employment and taxation. We'll definitely save some time along the way for questions and answers and give you some more information about what the credit union can offer for your business services needs. So before we jump into the presentation, we do have our first polling question. So I will turn this back over to Audrey.
All right, we are at poll question number 1. What is the most common business entity type in the U.S.? Is it A, an LLC? Is it B, general partnership? C, sole proprietorship? Or D, corporation? Let us know in Slido which one. So we'll give it a few seconds to see what people are saying. What are you thinking, Audrey?
After I unmute myself, most common business entity type, I'm going to say LLC.
LLC, okay.
Yeah.
So let's see what the audience is saying. So it's looking like it's almost about 50-50. There's 50% saying LLC and 50% saying sole proprietorship. Morgan, would you care to enlighten us, please?
Yes, so the answer is actually C. So the most common type of business structure for small businesses is a sole proprietorship. And this is basically because they're the easiest business structure to form with the least amount of government regulation. But up next, limited liability companies or LLCs seem to be the next most common option for small businesses in the US.
Good to know.
All right, so we will jump back into the presentation to discuss our business entities. So there's so many different steps to start a business, but one of the most important ones is choosing a business entity. So in this webinar, we will discuss the most common business entity types so you can understand the key differences and make an informed decision when establishing your business. So here on the slide, you can see a list of the most common business entity types that we will talk about today. So these are the 6 most common business entities that can be chosen to start a small business. But depending on your state, there's so many different business entity types or variations that you can choose. But for today's presentation purposes, we will discuss sole proprietorships, general partnerships, limited liability company, corporation, S corporation, and a nonprofit corporation. So up first is a sole proprietorship. So this is one person that conducts business for themselves. The sole proprietorship is the most common form of business organization. So once you start a small business by selling services or goods, really you automatically become a sole proprietor, even if you haven't registered your business. So for an example, let's say that you own chickens and start selling your eggs locally, you are considered a sole proprietor. But you should really still take the steps to start your sole proprietorship by choosing a business name, then filing that business name with your local county clerk where you plan to do business, and also obtain a tax ID number, which this isn't really required, but highly recommended if you plan to have future employees or grow your business. And lastly, open a business account to keep your personal finances separate from your business. So a sole proprietorship, it's really not a separate legal entity. So really that means the business owner is fully liable for financial issues related to the business. So a sole proprietorship, it's really popular among owners of businesses that are self-contractors or consultants. So let's talk a little bit more about sole proprietorships. Now, typically, these are very easy to establish with low cost. Most sole proprietors use a DBA. So DBA stands for doing business as. It's not really a business entity, but it's a type of registration that gives your business your own name. So when you go to file for a DBA as a sole proprietor, you can create a separate name for your business and stop using your personal name. To open a business account, you will be required to provide a assumed name or fictitious name certificate as a sole proprietorship. So that's the legal document that you can use as a sole proprietorship to give your business its own name. So while this business entity is relatively easy to establish, one disadvantage is there is no legal protection. So the owner's personal assets are not separate from the business assets, and the owner of the business is considered fully liable. Okay, let's move along to our next business entity type, which is a general partnership. A partnership is a single business where 2 or more people share ownership. General partnerships are the next level up from a sole proprietorship, with really the main difference is there's 2 or more owners instead of 1. So for example, if 2 or more people join forces and start selling a product or service, they have formed a partnership, even if they haven't filed anything with the state. So this is a common business entity structure for spouses or family members that want to set up a business to run together. A little bit more information for our partnerships. Partnerships are generally an inexpensive and easily formed business structure with less paperwork than what's required of an LLC, which we will discuss next. The majority of time to establish a partnership is spent on starting and focusing on a partnership agreement. So a partnership agreement, it is a legal document that outlines how your small business will operate. This agreement should cover how you will share the money and what role each partner will play in the small business. So just as a sole proprietorship, the partners in a general partnership are each fully liable. So up next, let's talk about a limited liability company, also known as an LLC. So LLCs are so popular because this business entity has the legal advantages to the owners. So the owners cannot be held liable for the debts of the business. LLCs are designed to keep owners' personal assets separate from their business assets. So for example, in the event of a business bankruptcy or other legal issues, the personal assets and income of the owners are protected from any business liability. LLCs are favored by small business owners that want the flexibility and the perks of a partnership or sole proprietorship, but it also has that legal protection, and it does not require all the formalities of a corporation, which we will discuss later on in the presentation. So let's take a little bit of time and talk about the process to establish an LLC. So the process to establish an LLC, it's a little bit more complex than the sole proprietorship and the partnership, but it's still not as formal as a corporation. The basic steps to start an LLC is to decide on a business name. Find out if the name is available by visiting your state's agency website and doing a name search. So most states will require you to include some version of LLC at the end of your business name. Next, every state does require an LLC to have a registered agent that must be available at an address within your state. You, as the business owner, can act as your own registered agent, or you can hire a company that provides registered agent services for a fee. So once all these items are in order, you will then file your business entity documents, commonly titled Articles of Organization, with your state, and also pay the state tax filing fees. So once you are approved, you will receive your registration documents, and those documents that you receive after completing these steps are what is needed to open a business bank account and also obtain a tax ID number. So for some states and different business types, you may also be required to create an operating agreement for your LLC, depending on your state. So this is a document that lists all of the member owners of the LLC with all the operating business details. So each state may use different regulations, so you should definitely check with your state on the Secretary of State website if you're interested in starting an LLC. Okay, so up next, let's talk about the next business entity type, corporation. So a corporation is created or incorporated by a group of shareholders who share ownership by holding stock in a business. These are large business entity structures, and they actually possess the same legal rights as an individual and are subject to very specific corporation taxes. So the main difference between a corporation and an LLC is that an LLC is owned by one or more people or individuals, while a corporation is owned by its shareholders. Corporations and LLCs have similar legal advantages, as the owners cannot be held personally liable for the debts of either entity. Also, unlike the sole proprietorship and partnerships, the LLCs and the corps pay an income tax on their profits. So in some cases, corporation profits are taxed twice. First, when the company makes a profit, and then again, when the dividends are paid out to the shareholders on their own personal tax returns. So most states require owners of a corporation to file articles of incorporation with the state, then issue stock to the company's shareholders. The corporation also is required to elect a board of directors to oversee the business plan and conduct annual meetings. Almost all large businesses are corporations. So some examples of corporations that we're all familiar with would be Google, Amazon, or Apple. Let's talk a little bit about corporations. Continuing with the corporation business entity, there is an option called an S corporation, sometimes known as S Corp. So this really isn't a separate business entity type, but it's a special type of corporation that is not subject to the corporation tax with special approval by the IRS. So the IRS assigns your business S Corp status if it meets the requirements of 100 or fewer shareholders, and this allows the corporation to pass their income, losses, deductions, and credits through the company's shareholders. So this basically allows the business to avoid that double taxation on the corporate tax that we talked about on the previous slide. It's a regulation that's applied to the C Corp. So alternatively to the C Corp from the previous slide, the S Corp avoids the drawback of that double taxation. So it essentially allows the profit, some losses, to be passed through the owner's own personal tax income return, and it's not subject to that corporate tax rate. So to apply for S Corp status, you must check with the IRS website and follow a different process when registering with your state. An S Corp is common among small business owners, and it can be a good alternative to an LLC, although it is just as complex to establish as a corporation to establish and maintain. Let's talk a little bit about what a nonprofit corporation entails. So a nonprofit corporation, so it can be used for religious, scientific, charitable, educational, literary, health, or animal welfare purposes. And those are just some of the broad examples for a nonprofit corporation. So because the work of a nonprofit corporation, generally this type of business, it basically benefits the public. So a nonprofit can receive a tax exempt status, meaning they don't have to pay federal income taxes on any of the profits that are made. So to file for a nonprofit status for your corporation, you must visit the IRS website to obtain the tax exemption, which is a separate process than registering with your state. So nonprofit organizations, they're tax exempt entities that operate to better the community. Nonprofit corps must file for incorporation just like a regular C Corp. Nonprofit corporations, they do need to follow the organizational rules very similar to C Corps, and they do have special rules to follow on what they can do with the profits earned. All right, so now that we've discussed the 6 most common business entity types, let's take a pause here if there's any questions. And remember, there's many different more business entity types and variations that we discussed. And I highly recommend checking out your state's requirements to determine which business entity type works best for your small business. If there's any questions so far, you can place them in the chat.
So Morgan, it looks like we don't have any questions in our Q&A yet. I think you're doing a great job at explaining all of this for us, so thank you. Guys, if you have any questions, any comments, make sure to put them in the Q&A. It is open for you, and we will be pausing again at the end of the presentation for any questions. So we can move along. Thank you.
All right, so we will move along, and that brings us to our polling question number 2. So I will turn it back over to answer the next polling question.
All right, so true or false, Your full coverage personal auto policy will completely cover you if you're in an accident when you're using your vehicle for business purposes. True or false?
It'd be nice if it were true. I don't know. That way you don't have to pay for two separate ones, but we'll find out here in a second. It looks like everyone is selecting false.
All right, so yes, B false. So a personal auto insurance policy, it excludes business use. So that means that you're not covered if you get in an accident while driving your vehicle for business purposes.
No.
Right, so let's move along to the rest of the presentation. So up next, we'll just briefly talk about business insurance for small businesses. So if you're just starting out in a business, business insurance may not come to mind, but it is important to protect your growing small business. You may want to consider business insurance if your business has property, such as inventory and equipment that cannot be easily replaced. So commercial insurance protects business owners from potential losses due to unexpected events they could not afford to cover on their own. So this would include lawsuits, natural disasters, or accidents. And the insurance coverage, it's intended for the business instead of for the individual. Here on the screen is the common types of commercial insurance. So commercial policies, like we mentioned, are different from personal insurance because they do protect the business, not the individual. And while shopping for business insurance, explore several policy options and consider consulting with a licensed agent to determine the policy types that may fit best for your small business. Right, so let's move along. It looks like we have another pause here if there's any questions.
No, I don't see any yet, Morgan. We can stop again here in a few more minutes. Thank you.
All right, and then we do have our final polling question.
All right, so where are you in your small business journey? A, my small business is up and running. B, I'm in the process of setting up my business. Or C, I haven't started yet. I'm here for more information.
Okay, so it looks like we're getting a mix of answers here. Morgan, have you ever tried to start your own business, or do you have?
So I am potentially looking to start a small business myself. I think it's a great way to kind of embrace that entrepreneurial maybe do like a little side, little side business. I think it's a
Mhm.
great option. And the credit union, I will say, has really great options for our business banking accounts and business loans. We have less fees, less minimum balance requirements than some of the other big banks, which I can also discuss if anyone has any questions.
Nice. I did not know that, but in this economy, I think it'd be nice for all of us to have our full-time job and a small business on the side.
Yes, I definitely agree.
So let's see here. It looks like half of our audience is saying my small business is up and running, and the other half is saying I haven't started yet. I'm here for more information.
Awesome. Well, it's great to check in and see where our members are at, and you are in the right place. So let's move along to the next slide. Just discussing small business banking. So like I mentioned, American Airlines, we do offer business banking account services. So business savings, business checking, along with business loans and business credit cards. We also offer online banking for our business, our small business memberships with an Autobooks feature. So Autobooks is essentially a small business bookkeeping service that the credit union offers. Here on the screen is some information to contact us. So feel free to contact business services at American Airlines Credit Union to speak with one of our representatives. We'd be happy to help you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over for some more credit union information.
Thank you, Morgan. And before we go into our last few slides here with our promos, it looks like we have one question that came in through one of our emails here, Morgan. The question is, which entity would you say offers the best balance of low maintenance and tax savings, for example, for a small business owner?
Sure. So, especially if you're just starting out, I would just recommend a sole proprietorship. And then maybe once you're kind of getting more into the business, it's growing, you're having more transactions, then you could upgrade to an LLC, the limited liability company. Keep
Mhm,
in mind there are more fees associated with establishing an LLC, but
mhm,
it is a way to really separate yourself as an individual from the business and can really kind of come into play when it's time to do tax season for your business. And also, it's really important once you get started to establish a business banking account to run all of the business related transactions through a separate account specifically for your business, and
mhm.
also attain a EIN or a tax ID number from the IRS. That's a great question.
Got it. Thank you so much. It looks like one more came in actually. It says, I plan to seek outside funding in the future. Which entity would you say is preferred by investors?
Sure. So preferred by investors. So I would probably suggest, you know, I don't think there's a preference per se,
Hmm.
but kind of what I mentioned, the LLC, you kind of have a little bit more of that legal protection. It's a little bit more established. So I would recommend an LLC.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Morgan, for
Mhm.
answering those questions. So for those on the call that would like to start their member journey today, they can easily do so by scanning the QR code and using the promo code BD4412 at the end of the application. The code will take care of the initial new member deposit of $6, so you have nothing to lose. Also, refer a family member, permanent household member, and or any coworkers that are eligible to join and get $25 for each referral up to 10 referrals. Can you go to the next slide for me, please, Morgan? Thank you so much. So here is another QR code for you guys to check out our current offers. So feel free to scan that as well. And next slide, please. And so thank you all for joining us today. If we didn't get to your question or if you have something more personal you'd like to discuss, we'd love to connect with you. Just let us know on the survey that you'd like to be contacted by a credit union representative. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and LinkedIn, and be sure to like and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube pages where you can watch previously recorded webinars anytime. So on behalf of Morgan, Audrey, myself, and the entire credit union team, we truly appreciate you tuning in and have a wonderful rest of the week. Morgan, Audrey, any last words?
Yes, thank you for